I'm the system environmental manager, and as RELLIS was assigned to system prior to the development, I started out with doing the preliminary environmental assessments of the portion of the property that was prime that would be first developed. And so I oversaw the environmental contractors as well as the architectural historians who evaluated the buildings that were over 50 years of age, many of which dated back to World War II, and evaluated those for potential historical status. So basically anything environmental, archaeological, et cetera, I get involved in.
And what were some of the interesting things that you may have discovered or found in the soil?
Well, one of the things that's one of these urban myths that has to jump right out there first thing is about buried airplanes. There has long been a rumor, and it may be true, we can't verify it, but it is said that the Air Force buried one or more airplanes somewhere on that 2,000 acres. And some gentleman claims he has knowledge of where it was, but he was unwilling to divulge it unless he got a piece of the action. So as we started doing this, my boss, Kevin McGinnis, just decided, all right, let's just either try to confirm this or just lay it to rest. And so we went out at this area where we were told it might be, and did a lot of geophysical investigations and came up empty, which didn't surprise me. I don't know what condition an airplane would be after being underground for 50 or 60 years anyhow, but we gave it a shot. And that's sort of the ongoing questions. Anytime you're looking at an old Air Force base where anything could have gone on, you're always aware that you might uncover something unexpectedly that could even be dangerous. That was one of our concerns prior to development. We did a lot of geophysical testing, borings, test pits, trying to see, especially in the areas that were what I would call the back 40, the area that the base used as its landfill, its dump. That's where they would tend to dispose of things or bury things. And so that's right in the prime development zone now. And so we wanted to make sure that we weren't going to find any surprises like an exploded ordnance and such. And so we did a lot of geophysical testing, as I said, and fortunately it came up clean. We really couldn't find anything, and that's been borne out during the infrastructure project as they've dug miles and miles of ditches and other borings out there and really haven't hit anything yet other than just a small landfill that we're dealing with right now, and just an old crane that was buried with a bunch of cable. But so far, everything's been safe.
There was that stash of TNT that was discovered out there a few years ago.
That's what sort of kind of set us on edge when it came to developing the site. That was really, I think, kind of one of those one-offs, one of those odd circumstances. I wasn't directly involved in it, so I really don't know more than hearsay on it. But it was, it was an eye-opener, and that's the sort of thing. I was examining the rail spurs and various, basically all the aerial photography that I could find on the campus. I found some excellent imagery from the Korean War era as well as just before it was handed over to Texas A&M. So when the base was at its greatest extent, and I spent a lot of time poring over that imagery and then trying to put myself in the kind of the place of a commander or someone, not a commander, but someone on the base in base operations, because you have to sort of be a sleuth. How would I do this? If I was running this, what would I have done? Because that's really all we have with few records is just aerial imagery and sort of a kind of a Sherlock Holmes approach, looking for clues where we might find potential problems.
Now, with the redevelopment, there's a real delineation between new and old out there, and an awful lot of the old has vanished. What will be preserved as far as the old structures and buildings that some of which date back to the World War II era? Mm-hmm.
I can't speak to all of those because they're decisions that management makes. From our archaeological, historical, architectural review of the buildings, none of them qualified for listing, which basically gave us the clearance that if we wanted to tear everything down, we could have. then it became a matter of judgment. The architects that did the review really liked, I can't remember the building number, but it's one of the old hangars that's just covered in sheet metal. It looks pretty nondescript, but they were really interested in its architecture as being type architecture for that era. I doubt in the long run that's going to stay. What has been decided is the Garrison Chapel. And in fact, it's in the process of evaluation by an architectural team to try to restore it to as near possible its original condition. That was, again, one of those missions that I sort of self-appointed on that one. They wanted to know, did I or could I find plans, designs for the building? And I discovered in the process that during World War II that Eleanor Roosevelt was on a committee that oversaw base construction and base life, and she was really concerned that they had chosen not to build chapels on all these new bases being built across the country. And so at her insistence, the Army Quartermaster Corps came up with one of their standard designs, and they built probably over 1,000 of these by the time the war was over at various bases. Very few of these are extant today, just a handful in varying stages of disrepair. One or two of them have been restored. So one of the things I found is that Fort Campbell, Kentucky had begun archiving old drawings. Amongst those was the standard chapel design that was exactly the design used at RELLIS. I was able to get them to send me not only their scanned images of those drawings, but they were going to dispose of the drawings themselves, and they put them in a tube and sent them to us. And so we're probably going to end up displaying those. Interestingly, one of the little side notes there is the roofs of those chapels were green, and that happens to be the chosen color for roofs at RELLIS, so that fits right in.